let's kick off into the challenge that a lot of us entrepreneurs face. I definitely faced this challenge when I started my first business. I never done any sales before. I was in project management, then a bit close to marketing, never asked anyone for money until we had our own business. So this fear of selling, of presenting, of public speaking is real. A lot of us have it. And when you start your business as a new entrepreneur, you're a founder, or if you're thinking about starting a business, those questions about selling and pitching are top of mind. As a matter of fact, 68% of entrepreneurs, of new business owners, don't come to this entrepreneurship with background in sales. So that fear is real, but the good thing is that sales is learnable. I remember, tell you a funny story, this is many years ago, when CDs were a thing. I attended some sales classes, and then the teacher, the trainer said, here's some CDs, you can have some tips. I remember playing those CDs over and over again and memorizing these questions that this amazing sales guy was sharing with us. And I remember my daughter walking and said, Dad, why are you listening to the same thing 5 times? But that's what I needed to do to be comfortable asking those sales questions. In addition, I noticed when I speak with entrepreneurs, and on the average, I'm speaking with, I would say 1 or 2 times a week, I'm speaking with either someone who's about to take a leap, they're working comfortably today, but they want to have their own business, or someone who started a business and they're struggling. And in a lot of cases, they're really good at what they do. Like when you as an entrepreneur, when you started a services business, when you started a consulting business, it's assumed, I'm going to assume that you have some domain knowledge, you have some core experience and expertise. So based on that knowledge that you have, that expertise that you have, you want to have your own business. So a lot of the founders I speak with, they have that core expertise, they have that core competency, but they struggle in conveying the value they add to their leads, to their clients. So that's natural. And that fear is real, especially if you haven't done any sales before, if in your corporate work or in other work you've done, you've avoided the sales department like the plague. So what do you do when you're ready to start a business, but you're concerned about selling? That's what we're talking about today, is helping you start to learn the art of sales, the art of pitching specifically, and how to deal with pitching in different scenarios. So think about it. Are there people out there that you've been wanting to approach, but you haven't? Or people that you're talking to about your new service, about your business, and they're not responding? If this is the case, maybe you want to check how you are telling the world about, or your audience, your target audience, about sales, about your services. For example, if you sell, I'll give an example, home care services, and you meet someone at a networking event, and you might say, yeah, so they ask you, what do you do? And say, hey, I have a home care services. Okay. So they might not know what this is about, especially if they don't have like someone, like an aging parent or someone in their family. So if you turn that into, we provide people peace of mind. We help their elderly. We help their aging parents at the personal level. We provide all the medical support they need. You start to help people understand what is it that you offer. So when we talk about a pitch, and this is moving on to the next section, like what is a pitch? What is the definition of a sales pitch? Think of the pitch as a message, as a presentation, whether it's verbal or written, whether it's short or long. It's an active communication to convey value to your potential client, to your lead, and that value that you are proposing has to resonate with that lead. So the goal of this pitch, or the sales pitch, is about conveying value, conveying the benefits of what you have, what you offer to the audience, and then convincing this person you're speaking with to take the next step. That initial pitch, and we'll talk about a more advanced pitch, a more formal pitch later, but initially, that first encounter, the goal of the pitch is not to get someone to sign a contract and close that deal. The goal of the pitch is to help them understand what you offer, learn more about what their needs are, and then move them one step closer in the sales process. So that's sort of a good initial background, kind of warming us up into this video about sales pitches. I want to cover, like I said, the types of pitches, the formal, informal, the challenges we face, and some from the trenches examples, and how to deal with some objections and other things related to sales pitches. But we want to make sure we are listening to you and answering your questions, including some of the questions that we got earlier. So let me check here on the questions that we have. So what do I do? What do I do if I'm shy, afraid to speak publicly and present? So that's me many years ago. Public speaking is a fear, maybe not the number one fear that we all have. So that is natural. But in the context of sales, if you're not pitching, you're not exposing, you're not providing, you're not providing exposure about your business, you're not doing outreach, and you're not selling. So the first thing that you want to do is in your mindset that I have to sell. Like it's sort of in a way like do and die, especially if you just left your corporate life and you started a business, and you gotta pay rent, you gotta pay expenses, you have a family. So in a way, you want to be thinking of this as something you have to do, something maybe you don't like to do, maybe you're not good at, maybe you don't want to do initially. But in business, there's a lot of things that you have to do. I think over time it'll be a second nature, and you'll be very comfortable at it. But in terms of the fear of public speaking, the fear of pitching, it's about practice. At the end of the day, you gotta do the repetitions, right? The 10,000 hours. So I would say, as a practical step, practice on your own first, in front of a mirror, record yourself, whatever, on a camera, just audio recording. Watch others, watch on YouTube, see how people pitch, especially in your service, in your vertical, in your niche, and then practice this on maybe your spouse, your significant other, your friends. And if they're not willing to listen to your pitch, maybe they're not friends, but good friends. But try with someone you know. And I can tell you, when I did my first pitch, and it's a true story. After my partner and I sat down and came up with a business plan and figured out what is it we're going to do. And at the time, we wanted to build and sell websites. This is when websites were cutting edge, and that was sort of the new thing that businesses hadn't adopted then. We decided, okay, we figured out the pricing. We figured out how long it's going to take us to build a website. We figured out the different packages, but then we were sort of really hesitating on going out and pitching, because both of us didn't have that in us, didn't have sales in us. So we figured we'd go to places that we are familiar with. So the restaurants we eat at, and then those were the first set of victims. So on the first day when we decided to go out and start that business, we went to 5 restaurants. Kid you not. And the sad end of the story is that we got 5 rejections. I mean, it was that day, the end of the day, when we came back to the home office, my partner's garage, we felt awful. Like, we couldn't believe it. We thought at least one of them would say yes and decide to work with us. After all, we've been going to these restaurants for years and they know us. So we figured that at least feel bad and help us out. That didn't happen. And it took us a few days to recover. And then, we said, you know what? We decided to start this business. We got to do it. And we came up with the next set of people we go to. And the next one was my dentist. And that woman was amazing. She was very quiet after I presented the idea to her. And she said yes. So that was our like sort of winning moment. We felt amazingly well that we were able to pitch and close the deal. Long story short, to answer your question is I would say come up with the pitch, practice it with folks, your friends and family, and then go out and initially, before you go out to strangers, try it out with people that you have done business with before. So good question. Now, one thing to keep in mind is, before we go to the types of pitches and the anatomy of a sales pitch, is that pitch, when you're speaking with people, um, this is the first impression of you if they haven't met you before, or if they're friends and colleagues, ex-colleagues, what have you. Maybe you're networking with them, they know you, but when you're pitching, that pitch is the first impression of what you're about to do, that the new business that you're starting. So it's really important to leave a very positive first impression when you're pitching. And this is why we're having this discussion and sharing this information, is for you to be very comfortable, very confident, come out natural when you're pitching. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And the other thing is that attention spans are getting shorter and shorter over the past decade. We all know that. We're all very distracted. So part of learning how to pitch, part of mastering the art of pitching, is to be able to command attention. So as we go through these examples, and as we talk about the formal and informal ways of settings for pitches and the different components of pitches, keep in mind is that whether you're pitching early on in the sales process or later as you get closer to signing a contract, the idea is to be listening to customers and to be able to, grab their attention and keep it interested and inspired to work with you. So that is all about what the sales pitch is. Now we're going to go into the types and the anatomy of a sales pitch. And before we do that, if you're finding this information useful, hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. So small short pitch during this video. So let's see if we have any questions coming in. So Tara, thank you so much. Hi again. She says, Tara says, amazing story. Appreciate it. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate you, Sarah. So appreciate you, Tara. In terms of the next section, this is about the types and anatomy of a sales pitch. So there are essential components to any pitch, and it's going to depend on the type of pitch it is. And for our purposes today, I'm trying to categorize this. There's sort of a spectrum of things, and there are different dimensions. But to categorize the way I want to describe pitches, I would say there's the informal setting, and there's the formal setting, and then there are different dimensions with each setting, and there are also components that apply to some and components don't apply to others. So, for example, for the informal setting, there are 4 components, and we'll get to those in a second. An informal setting is something that happens spontaneously. You're going to grab. You're standing in line for something, and someone, it's a long line, and you're talking, right? You're at a gym, or you're at a networking event. So that's you haven't really planned for this. It just happens, and they ask you what you do. In this setting, I recommend that you speak less and you listen a lot. So say what you have to say about the service that you have, the consulting business that you have, and be prepared to sort of, and we'll talk about this in a bit, about your maybe 10-second pitch, conveying the value and describing what you do in 10 seconds, and have something a bit longer, maybe a 30-second pitch, so you can elaborate more, and then also have a 2-minute pitch where you can elaborate further. So, but again, all of that is happening in a way that you really haven't planned for. You bumped into someone, or someone emailed you, or you're catching up with an old friend, and they say, hey, what are you up to? So you go over, without being, going into a lot of details and into a lot of technical aspects. You just tell them briefly about what is it that you offer, and then listen a lot. The formal setting, it's a bit different. So this is after, and maybe if we can show the sales funnel, this might be helpful here. The formal setting is that you've talked to the lead, they've learned about you, you've sent them material, they went to your website, they went to maybe your YouTube channel, and now they like you, they like what you offer, and they want you to go and pitch to maybe the business owner, or to the C-level, to the CEO or the CFO. So the formal setting requires more preparation, it's scheduled, you have a lot of time to prepare, and by that time, you should be really ready to propose a solution, and be very, you should be ready to articulate the problem that the client has had. So if you look at the sales funnel for a second here, you'll see that, and we do have a video on this, the ultimate guide to sales funnels. If you don't have a sales process, a sales system in place today, I highly recommend you set up a system, you set up a funnel. Again, if you go online, their funnels were 4 stages, their funnels were 6 stages. It doesn't really matter, but under the concepts behind a funnel are really important. So as I was saying earlier, this top of the funnel, this awareness stage, people just don't know who you are and what you do. So that's where that maybe informal setting type of pitch, where you're briefly describing what it is that you do and then learning more from them. And then as you're educating the client, as they're learning more about your business, as they're evaluating your solution, as they're maybe talking to other competitors, then you, at that phase, you're more likely to be in a place where you're asked to do a formal pitch, a formal setting. And again, in my corporate background, a formal pitch could be something that we plan for a month, and we might have to go on site, bring an army of folks with us to prepare for the pitch and to be there, different subject matter experts. So a formal setting is a bit more typically later in the stage in the sales process, and that informal pitch is more early on when you are just meeting someone and letting them know about what you do. So moving to the next step and digging a little bit deeper about the informal setting. And again, this could be over the phone, over Zoom, it could be in person, it could be, someone you just met at the gym, or which something you definitely should be doing as a new business owner, as a new consultant for your new venture, or if you're thinking about having your own business, it's okay to network. You can go and see how do this in action, and you can test out that pitch. So in this informal setting, again, walk you through an example. I am at a networking event and grabbing for that blueberry muffin, and someone, hey, John, they see your name tag and say, hey, my name is Jane, and I'm, they're doing the same thing. They're telling you about what they're offering and what they're selling, or they could be someone who's genuinely just want to meet you. So what do you do? And this is the time to have that 10-second pitch and say, yeah, we do X, Y, and Z, right? And we'll go over some examples. So put yourself, if you're preparing for your sales pitch, if you're trying to become better at pitching, imagine these scenarios. If I met someone at the gym, if I'm standing in line, how do I tell people about what I do without being obnoxious about it? I get the school of thought is, if you're starting your own business, you're putting 60, 70, 80 hours a week. You're living this business day and night. Balance is important. There's not a whole lot of balance in life in general, but you're going to sacrifice some things to start this business. That's just part of it. You got to work hard. You have to really, think about the business day and night. You have to be a walking billboard, in my mind, again, without being obnoxious about it. You don't want to be pitching at a funeral. You don't want to be pitching at a wedding. Well, maybe at the reception. I've done it before. Maybe that's shameless. But again, you have to, and you learn this. This is an art. You're not going to master this the first day. So trial and error. We make a mistake. We make fools of ourselves, but we learn from this. And that's part of, again, being an entrepreneur. Resilience is a core thing to have. When you make a mistake, okay, feel bad about it for a minute, for two, for a day, and then get up and go back and do it better the next time around. So back to this concept of the informal setting. Imagine that scenario and be prepared. And I'll give you an example or examples of a bad pitch and a good pitch. So when we started one of our companies in the past, we were selling analytics, and this is over 10 years ago. Most people didn't know what analytics is. So, but I was I was very proud, and we had a small team at the time, maybe 4, 5, 6 of us, and we're consultants and we knew this stuff, and we were Google partners at the time, Google certified partners. So I'd go around and say, when people ask me, what is it that you do? Say, we have an analytics consulting agency. Feeling great. And then now I can still remember the blank looks on their faces. Like, what the heck is this guy talking about? Again, this is 10, 12 years ago. You say analytics now, everybody gets it. And I wasn't getting any traction after that. So I used to go to all these events. I would go like 7 o'clock in the morning. I don't eat early breakfast. I'd go there for these breakfast networking events just to meet people. I'd go I had the sales training where the sales trainer said, print 1,000 business cards and get rid of them over the next 3 or 6 months. And I did. Like, I would tell everybody what I did. So after all this networking, all this hard work, no one was responding. We were not getting any traction. So we sat down, my business partner and I, with a whole lot of frustration, and we came up with a very concise conversation starter. And we said, instead of saying we had this boring, we have an analytics consulting services agency, we started to say we help companies derive actionable insights from their data. We had a day and night difference in response. And again, people will say, well, what does that mean exactly? So now you know, if you have a website, you have an email system, I can tell you how many visitors you're getting. I can tell you how many people are opening your emails. They got more interested. Because in the past, it was sort of, what was that saying? Spray and pray. You know, you do marketing and you pray that it works. With data, with analytics, we can help them improve what is it that they're doing. And this is my example from the company, one of the companies I founded. Again, think about it from your perspective and your audiences. Make sure when you're pitching, you are highlighting the value, conveying value to the lead, and then adding, which is really important. That's the first component of in the anatomy of a pitch sale. You're conveying value, and the lead and it's resonating with the lead. So let's pause for a second and see if we have some questions. And it looks like we sure do. So thank you, Mason. I appreciate you joining us, and thank you for your comment here and the question. What is your favorite way to start a cold call? Tough question, Mason, because, and I'm going to be honest, I didn't do, excuse me, sorry about this. I wasn't really good at cold calling. And I think I did everything when we started our very first business. And at that time, I had a family, 3 kids, and I was laid off, and I had to make it work. So I tried everything. But cold calling was really, really hard. So I'm not and what I ended up doing, and money was tight, but I ended up hiring a company that would do the cold calling, and they would schedule a follow-up call for me. So I forgot, I think we paid them like $1,500 a month, and they would secure like 2 or 3 meetings a week. So I took the easy, maybe difficult route out and paid for that service at the time, because I just, for whatever reason, I just could not pick up the phone and just call someone randomly. So that's a confession here. But I think I did everything else in sales that was possible. But now that I've been doing, after I think my 7th venture now, and if I have to do some things now, I would go online and learn more about cold calling, cold pitching. Again, warm pitching was okay at a networking event, was not a problem. But if you meant picking up the phone and calling someone, that was just really hard for me to do, and I don't have that experience. But if you're saying you're at a networking event and you want to do that cold start, some of the things that I just mentioned earlier, I think are very, very important. And one thing I would say, again, think of pitching as a continuum. It's not just I'm going to pitch and they're going to close. So I always like to start with just a little bit about what I offer, and then hear them out. Because again, this becomes more of it's an art. Like, you want to be able to and it's one of the tips, actually, I'm ahead of myself here, but you want to be able to really pivot and sort of, be ready to move around and address another thing that they bring up that you haven't thought of, right? So I would say start with something broader that conveys the value, hear them out, ask some open questions, and then tailor the next part of the pitch based on what you just heard. And I'll have some examples about it in a bit. But good question. I will be more than happy, Mason. We'll leave this in the description later with some resources on cold calls. Sorry, I wasn't able to address your question as much as I can, but I also want to be honest and authentic here. I think we have some other questions, so let's put another question here on the screen. So, any recommendations for handling and managing rejections? So again, there's a ton of material on this, but rejections happen, and I have an example later here, but I'll share it now. So let's say you're speaking with a lead on a software. Let's say you're an HR consultant, and let's say that you are a partner with a company that has systems for HR, let's say for payroll, for evaluate performance evaluation, for benefits, right? So you as a consultant, you come into a company and you implement that software and you customize it. So you meet a lead and you tell them a little bit about what you do, and you tell them, hey, and then you've watched this video, you've learned a lot about pitching, and now instead of saying, hey, I have an HR consulting company, you can say, I help you lower your hiring cost. That's value, right? You're conveying value, and can I kind of help you? They might come back and say, no, our hiring costs are optimal. We're good. So an objection. So now instead of me going over this wish list of features and capabilities that I bring or the software brings to the client, maybe I found another angle. So for example, I might say, also, what I can do and what I've done, especially here, like mention a company in their industry, say, we've helped reduce onboarding costs by 25%. And maybe then you see the look on their faces and like, their ears perked. This is interesting. If you can show that you can help reduce onboarding costs and increase retention. A lot of people, they have a very terrible experience getting into companies, and companies don't have a good onboarding process. So that benefit of reducing onboarding costs and increasing retention, that could be that would be sort of your way in. So in terms of the handling rejections, I mean, part of it, and again, this is another note that I had later, is as you start the business, as you're pitching, as you're getting questions from people, jot down those questions. And if you hesitate and don't come across as articulate or knowledgeable, and you say, oh my God, what did I do? How did I not answer this question properly? That's a learning moment. Take that question, and that evening, right, instead of watching whatever's on TV that night, no judging here, write down a better answer for that question, right? So now you have something in your back pocket. So I think part of it is be prepared in your mind. Here's the pitch, the 10-second, the 30-second, the 2-minute pitch. Have a list in your mind of FAQs that you prepared, and then you're going to build on this. I mean, there's no end. I remember one time, and I know we're sort of going all over here, but this is irrelevant. I remember we were pitching to I won't mention the name, to a global cruise line. This is later when we were doing really well, a cruise line, and we were one of the top 3 Google certified partners in this area in analytics, and we've done business in every other vertical. And I was on site. I was on the East Coast, and we were in this room full of executives, and they had a very specific example. I know this is a bit technical, but a very specific example. They said when people are on the cruise ship and they're using the app for the cruise for the journey, we want to be able to track what is it that they're doing. And in that setting, on the ship, there's no signal. So if our company, that at that time it was helping track data and making sense of it, if you're tracking data and you're not sending the data real time because there's no signal, then the client isn't getting the information they need about the user experience. They're not getting the insight that they want. And after pitching to Fortune 50, Fortune 100, doing this for a long time, like, oh my God, what do I do? And it just so happens, again, this comes with experience, is that we had to pitch a similar thing to a company in a different vertical, an app that was set up for, if you're going, let's say you're in the Rockies and at 11,000 feet and there's no signal. So for trails and tracking folks who are on trails in remote areas. So that bringing an analogy, bringing an example, maybe not in the same vertical, maybe not the same exact scenario, but I think bringing examples of what you've done in similar situations might be a good way to handle rejections. So I know we've sort of went all over here, but maybe we'll pause on questions for a little bit and go back to where we were. So we were talking about there's two different settings. That way I'm categorizing pitches. One is the informal setting, and one the formal setting, right? So in the informal setting, I said there are 4 components. So one is value, making sure you're conveying value to the lead. The second is credibility. So keep in mind that people buy from people. You know, at the end of the day, they have to trust you. They have to know that you're professional. They have to sense it. They have to feel it. They have to experience it. And part of it is the way you pitch, that you're comfortable, you're confident, you're knowledgeable. And again, I'm going to assume if you're starting or thinking of starting a consulting business or a services business, you have that domain knowledge. And probably you're very good at something that you've done, that HR consulting, that IT consulting, the whatever it is, the paper shredding business, whatever it is, the lawn mowing services, it doesn't have to be technical. So you know that domain knowledge really well. So in that interaction, in that informal setting, as well as in the formal setting, also showing that credibility, not directly say, hey, I have all these certifications. Hey, I'm the best guy around or the best gal around. No, you got to do it properly in a professional manner. So in that conversation, bringing up your certifications, bringing up, hey, we're a Google partner, as I always used to do that. Or if you have a podcast, or if you have a blog, or you have anything that adds value, or sorry, anything that does add value, but anything that also conveys that you're really someone who's knowledge, and maybe that you're the master of that domain. So credibility comes again in different ways, right? And the same concept that a lot of people who talk about landing page, website optimization and landing page optimization, they talk about adding, testimonials, adding quotes, adding anything that you've published, if you spoke at conferences, if you've authored a book or an ebook. So blending those elements of credibility into the conversation, I think would, in an amazing way, without you having sort of to brag about it, just naturally bring those in the conversation, or maybe in the follow-up email or in the follow-up conversation, bring up all the experience, all the certifications, all the things that you've done that will convey that you're credible, you're professional, and that you have that experience. Another example that actually someone who had reached out to us recently is they have experience in restaurants. They design and manage menus. They help restaurants improve their processes and help them move into sort of that digital transformation, to move from pen and paper to digital devices. So if you're telling, let's say you're at a networking event with restaurant owners, right? So mentioning things that I've implemented 15 of these systems and we've seen, maybe share some results, or that I'm working with this restaurant chain. Or if you just started the business, again, don't make things up. It's okay to embellish a little bit, right? But hey, I just implemented this for this restaurant. It could be a small diner. You don't have to mention that word small. Again, I'm all about being authentic, being true. In sales and marketing, it's okay to embellish a little bit. I'm gonna get in trouble for that, but I think I'm okay. So don't make things up, but you want to highlight, you want to share. Don't be shy. This is not the time to be shy. Again, you don't want to be arrogant. You don't want to be, you don't want to show off. But there's a time and place to bring this and practice this in your pitch, in this maybe the 2-minute pitch. Like mention these things, the certifications, again, the training, the public presentation you've done, the things you published, all that helps. So that's credibility. I want to move to the next topic. Again, the component of a good pitch is understanding the lead. We've covered some of that already, but I do want to highlight a couple of things. But before that, and as you see, again, we talked about value, credibility, understanding the lead, and then that call to action at the end. So let's look at a question here. Let's see, what do we have? We have a question from Adam, from Abhishek. Thank you. So appreciate all your comments. Thank you for what you share on LinkedIn as well all the time. Thank you for being with us here. So the question is, hey, Faris, pitching website services 10 years ago and now has changed drastically. Also, these days with AI-driven parts coming in, how do you propose it should be handled? So of course, pitching websites was different. Today, you can go on GoDaddy.com and launch a site in 5 minutes, right? So, and I'm not technical, I can do it. So the example, but people, the interactions, the way we interact with people, that's really, I think that's still there. The psychological aspect of things, the emotional, things, the top emotional aspect of things, I don't think that has changed. We might be distracted more. There might be a whole lot of more information about a business or about a service out there, right? I think buyers in most cases are a whole lot more educated about things than they used to before. But people you're pitching to, they're business people like you, they're business owners or they're managers, they're busy people too. So I think, I mean, in terms of AI driven parts, again, I'm not sure what you mean exactly, but in terms of if you're offering your services about content or about web design, yes, it is impacted by AI, and we can talk about this maybe later. But in terms of the human aspect of things, the human aspect of selling, of pitching, of understanding, of listening, I don't think that has changed a lot since maybe 10 years ago. Now we might be doing more of it on Zoom than we do it in person. Yeah, that is just the nature of things. But delivering confidently, being knowledgeable, having the list of FAQs in your mind to handle objections, that's still needed. I hope I answered your question properly. If not, please leave us a comment. We can pull it on the screen as well. So moving to the next component of pitching, it's about understanding the lead. And that's what I said earlier. I said memorize the pitch, practice it, make sure it's natural, but we're not robots. So when I go and meet, the example I said earlier about the HR consulting services, and I'm not just going to go and list everything I do or everything that the software offers, but listen to the lead, understand their pain points. Their pain points might be cost. What they're paying today for a vendor is too costly. They're looking to save money. For others, maybe they're a new startup and they have a lot of money, and time of service and delivering the service might be their main pain point. So cost is not an issue. Another one, if you're listening carefully to the lead, it could be about the quality of the service. So money's not an issue, time is not an issue, but they've tried 3 consultants in the past and they all have failed miserably. So what they're looking for is they want to vet this next vendor, the next consultant, and make sure this is the right fit for their business. So in this process of learning from the lead, from listening to the lead, you want to learn as much as possible and then refine, shouldn't say refine, in this informal setting, then on the fly tweak your pitch or customize the pitch to what you just heard. And again, this doesn't, to be totally honest, it doesn't come out. Some of us may be natural at it, others may not, but it does take practice, and this deliberate practice is important. But I think if you're going into a meeting and reminding yourself that in those initial informal settings, I'm going to listen, I'm going to say it a little and listen a lot, I think that will help. That will help a lot. Now, the fourth component of an informal, for a pitch in an informal setting, is about the call to action. So again, back to the scenario: you're at a networking event. You told them what you do. They gave you some feedback, or they give you more information. You told them some more. They got excited. You don't want to leave that setting without a call to action. Us marketing geeks, we would call it CTA. So your CTA, your call to action is maybe your call to action is, the main thing is to move them along the sales funnel. Remember, there's awareness and there's signing a contract, and this thing doesn't happen overnight, right? So in that initial phase of the sales process, the goal is to move them closer. So the next thing is if they're interested, maybe in pricing or the way you deliver the service, or they want to know more about your capabilities, is maybe schedule a meeting, maybe a follow-up email with additional information. You have a white paper on the subject, or you have a video on you demo that service, or maybe a next really, and we have a dedicated video on this that you can see on our channel. It should be launching in a couple of weeks, but you can use a demo as part of your sales pitch. So where people they're lowering their guards and they want to learn more about you and the technology. So there are a lot of ways to get someone excited, but based on that interaction in the informal setting, this is where you want to leave that setting with something that they agree to. An email, a follow-up call, additional material you want to send, maybe an industry analysis, whatever the case might be. Find a way to convince them to speak with you further and meet with you. And maybe the best thing would be if they can introduce you to other decision makers. So those all would be good call to actions. Again, the goal is to make progress in that sales funnel. So these are the 4 components for the informal setting. Now, we move on to the formal setting. They've invited you to come in and present, and they have their CFO, the bean counters. They want to make sure this is within budget, and they have maybe their chief, people officer, if you're an HR consultant. So now everything we've said so far is still applicable. But now, because you know a lot about that business, you've spoken with that first person you met, you've done some research, you looked at the industry they're in, you looked at their competition, you've gone through their website and really understood what they offer. You want to go into that meeting with 2 things in mind. One, you should be able to articulate the problem. That's really important. Again, we're not going to be generic. We're not going to be sort of top level. It's not going to be a top level discussion at this stage. When you're going to meet the executives or the business owner, you want to be able to articulate the problem that they have, and quickly thereafter, and validate that, and quickly thereafter show that you have a solution that's going to address this problem. So that's really important. And the good thing is, in a formal setting, you'll have the time. So if I met Jane Smith a week ago and we agreed to meet, I can say, okay, in a couple of weeks, let's find something on the calendars and come in and pitch. So you'll have time, a week or 2, whatever the case might be, to prepare for that pitch. So it's really important. Again, 2 things in the formal setting is problem identification, that you've identified the problem, you understand the problem really well, and then you go there with a proposed solution. Again, the solution is not going to, we're not going to get into the nitty-gritty and all the details, but you at least show them that you have an approach to address this problem. So maybe this is a good time to also take some other questions if we have. I think we have a bunch of comments here. And I know we've received some questions prior to the live stream. So let's take one of those now. Should I pitch a service that I'm just thinking about and I haven't really developed yet? So you want to pitch a service that you're thinking about, but you haven't really developed. So, well, I guess it depends have you started a business or not. So let's go through over these 2 scenarios. If you haven't started a business and you're vetting the idea, I think I love what you just said, because you're thinking about it. Like, I want to be ready. So I haven't left my job, or if unfortunately I've been laid off recently and I'm thinking to invest some money into a business. I love the fact that you're thinking about how to pitch, because it's important. You got to grow that sales muscle. It's going to take repetitions, right? So if you haven't started a business, go network. Everything I said earlier, do that part of your market research. I'm going to make an assumption that you have a business plan, and part of that business plan, and again, we have a video on this, a couple of videos on that. Check them out. But part of that business plan is market research, and market research is understanding, identifying your audience, understanding their pain points, their wants, their needs, their desires. So if you want to test out the idea, if you're vetting that idea, go to these networking events, go where your potential leads are, and practice that pitch. Not only you'll learn and you'll benefit from practicing, but also you'll learn the objections. You'll learn how people perceive the pitch. You'll learn if there are competitors. So I love the idea that you're thinking about pitching a service if you're not ready to develop. Now, of course, there's a risk that people say, yeah, we're interested, can you deliver? So I think when you're in these situations, don't again, if you don't have the business yet, try it out and say, I'm thinking, about it. Or if you already have a business and you're ready to execute, but maybe you haven't figured everything else out, I would say pitch, get that contract, and then between the time you pitch and when you're getting the contract, you can be ready to deliver. You can get a contractor to help you if you can't do it on your own, right? So I would say go out and pitch and test out the idea, you'll learn and you'll hear from your audience, from your potential leads. Good. So one other thing that also came through questions in terms of the sales pitch structure, especially in a formal setting, typically there's a slides deck, there's a slides deck, a PowerPoint deck. We won't spend a lot of time on this today, but there are a whole lot of resources on this. You can go on Canva, HubSpot, even Asana. They have really some great content on templates for sales pitches. So if you haven't done a formal pitch to a C-level or to a business owner, there's a structure in there. You want to start again with the benefits, a bit of the credibility. You want to translate that into slides, and again document the problems they've identified, and also the proposed solution. So check out again Canva, HubSpot, Asana, and a few others, many other resources on templates for sales pitches, and also on like the 10-second pitch, the 15-second pitch, the 30-second pitch. The 2-second pitch. I know you can go on ChatGPT and put something, enter what you're thinking and get some ideas. I would definitely add that authentic part to it. And I would definitely add what ChatGPT doesn't know is your own story, your own experience. Like, keep in mind, even if you started a business, and this is something, actually, I'm ahead myself, but that's okay. We're sort of already moving into the practical tips here. But you're not if you're starting a business tomorrow, it's not like you just started and you have no experience in life or experience in business. Let's say you're 30, and you worked after college when you're 22, so you have 8 years of experience. So you have something to offer. You have something to add. So in your pitching about your new business, and that is a common question that you might get when you're pitching. How long have you been in business? Have you done business in our vertical? How many clients do you have? These are really tough questions to ask, especially if you just started a business and you have no clients. So you have to have answers for those, and you can't make things up, and you don't want to lie. You shouldn't lie. So this is where you can leverage your credibility, the things I talked about earlier, like your years in the industry, the certifications. People are going to look you in the eye, and they're going to connect. If you're authentic, if you're really, they feel the passion that you're starting this business because you want to help people, and you tell them, I don't have a lot of customers, so you're going to get all my attention, right? I mean, in sales, and this is for a lot of us who didn't have that sales experience, you're not begging for charity. It's you're matching need with value. You're helping people solve their problems. You're helping people reach their aspirations. You're helping people get comfortable with things, whatever the service that you offer, right? So keep that in mind, as you're thinking about sales, and especially if you're struggling with pitching and with sales in general. So let's move to the next section here, is about practical tips. And again, I know we've covered some of them already, so I might skip over some of the things that I prepared. But the first pitch is, first practice, I can't talk now. The first practical tip is practice, practice, practice. As the saying goes, the 5 P's. Prior practice prevents poor performance. So what I said earlier holds true. I told you my CD stories. I was replaying these CDs forever till I memorized the pitch. You want to memorize, and you want to deliver it naturally. You want to be ready for these objections. So a lot of this we covered already. I don't want to go over it again, but practice is really important. Practice by yourself. Those of you who maybe skipping to this section of this video, I want to say that again. Practice by yourself. Record it and listen to it. It's going to sound awful. That's okay. Make it better. Practice with your significant other, with your friends. Practice in these small settings, people that you know. Don't practice with strangers right away. Or if you like to do that, just sort of jump into the deep end right away. Just do it. Go and practice with strangers. What is the worst thing that they're going to do? They're not going to buy from you. Okay? So you'll get better. So practice is really important. Can't really overemphasize it. So do that. And I think, as for those of you who already have businesses and you have customers, and maybe you're in this growth phase, trust me, pitching doesn't get old. Pitching, you can't be an expert at pitching forever once sort of you've mastered this, because as you're growing, you're probably pitching to different clients, different verticals. You're expanding your business maybe horizontally or vertically. You're speaking with different stakeholders. As you start to work with bigger companies, you're going to get a different kind of audience. So always prepare for the pitch. Don't just say, I know this stuff. I've sold 50. I have 50 contracts. Practice is really important, and make sure as you go to new verticals, new sectors, new type of people you're meeting with, you got to practice for those as well. Again, if you're finding this content useful, leave us a comment here, subscribe to this channel. And we do have, one thing I want to say is, we do have our website, startupwithfairs.com, and we have the Daily Advisor, a daily newsletter with tips on how to help you start a business if you haven't done so already. And if you started, how to grow that business and to address all aspects of the business. So the goal of this venture that we've started is, with the 20 plus years of experience with seven ventures, a lot of folks helped me along the way. And part of it is we don't sell any consulting, at least at this point. So there's no pitch for me. I'm not asking you to buy anything, because we're not selling anything, at least as of now. But I do, our goal is to create a community and really learn the challenge that you're facing, so we can produce better content, more relevant content for our community. So that's back to the practical tips. The second thing is about customization. So as I said earlier, when we're speaking with people, we're not robots. I want to make sure that pitch is as relevant, as personalized, as specific to that audience as possible. So 3 things. So I thought personalization, relevance, and that aspect of being very specific to the audience. So if I go to a networking event and, again, speak little and then hear more, listen more. If I'm speaking, whatever the service is, if I'm speaking with a CFO, like, personalize the benefits of your service or the product that you have to what is typically of interest to the CFO. How? They're bean counters. Their main thing is the bottom line, right? So emphasize the financial aspects of things. If you're speaking with maybe the CIO, and again, you could be targeting, I know I'm using the C-level as an example, but our content, what we're sharing here, applies to all verticals, tech, non-tech. So if you go to a business owner and you sense, and in that networking event, and you sense that they're really talking about budget, and they have tight budgets and they have no budgets, so the financial aspect of things is important, so highlight that. So in terms of personalizing this, is you want to make sure, whether it's the focus of the business or the company size, share something that will give the impression, that convey that you work with people like them. So that's really important. Personalize that based on what you learn from that lead. And obviously, in the formal setting, when you go to pitch later in the later stages of the sales process, you've already known a lot about that company. So your presentation, if you're doing a set of slides, should be 100% personalized. But I'm talking about the harder one is in the informal setting. You met someone at the gym, or you met someone at the networking event. You want to be able on the fly personalize sort of the discussion as you go further in explaining the benefits of what you offer. The second thing is relevance. And again, examples in whatever industry you're in are there. So if you're selling, for example, to a property management company, and you sell IT security services, think about other companies that are in the same vertical that you've done work for. At the same time, their business model. So for example, in the IT security settings, maybe they have a lot of remote agents, and those agents have their own devices. So from a security perspective, access to customer data, or maybe from a hacking perspective, this might be top of mind for them. So showing them that how you solved for these similar situations when you had another customer in the property management vertical or otherwise, where they had remote agents and they had their own devices, and that you solved for that. That's going to resonate a lot with them. And the last part is in terms of the vertical specific. So I said earlier, to have the pitch, to memorize it over time, you want to have a set of pitches. Now, I don't want to overwhelm you. I know that this is what it takes to really close deals. if I'm going to speak to a group of dentists, I should do a whole lot of research and talk to dentists in their language. So when I go and pitch to them, I shouldn't use the word customer when I'm referring to their patients, right? If I'm going to pitch to an insurance provider, to insurance company, insurance carrier, again, I wouldn't use the word customer. Like, what terms do they use in their industry? So they have health providers, doctors, they have patients, they have, partners. So part of this work is a part of, this art of selling, and you say, he or she, they're great salespeople or they're amazing entrepreneurs. There's a lot of hard work ahead of the pitch. There's a lot of preparation. Remember what we said, the 5 P's: prior practice, prior practice prevents poor performance, right? So before you go to an industry event, before you go to a whatever kind of setting, if it's in a specific vertical, learn the lingo, learn the language of that vertical. So and if you have a customer in that vertical, that's going to make things easier because you've done the business, you've done the work with them, and highlight that. But if you haven't, and that's going to be the case for most of you out there who are just starting, then just learn the language of that industry, the terms they use, and learn. You can search, you can ask that Chat GPT, what are the challenges that dentists are facing this year when it comes to whatever the service that you have, right? So be prepared. So that's on customization. So we talked about practice in this section on practical tips. We talked about practice, we talked about customization, and next I want to talk about supporting data. But before we do that, let's see if we have questions here. Do you always have to have a conversation with your lead before a formal sales pitch? Short answer is yes. I think in my early days, and I see it with junior salespeople, you're eager to pitch. You're eager, you're eager to just it's almost like it's a task. You want to get it off your calendar. You want to be as prepared as possible. So if you haven't had a conversation with a lead, and you just go in and just give your generic pitch deck, I mean, most likely you're going to be off. So I would do, if you're in a situation where, and I can't think of one right now, where, if you can, please leave us a comment here. If you're in a situation where you're having a conversation you're having to pitch a formal pitch without any conversation, you're going to do your best. You're going to do, again, have the presentation, have the FAQs, and go and then be able to think on your feet, sort of pivot on the fly. But I would highly recommend against going into a formal pitch without a whole lot of information gathering. Like again, you learned this. We didn't do this. We failed miserably at pitching for the longest time. Trust me, it was hard. The first couple of years were really hard for the business, and that's a subject for another video maybe. But I think going in there with a whole lot of preparation about the business and studying that and being ready is going to really help. And what I used to do is, if my lead that I had spoken with said, yeah, I want to come and meet our owner and their CFO, I would ask some questions, and especially if you establish some rapport with this first lead. So before your formal meeting, gather as much information about who's attending and where they are in the organization, and if they're part of the decision-making process, and what are their own specific pain points. So ideally, you go into this formal pitch and you address the needs and the pain points of everyone who's attending. That would be an amazing pitch. So we can't get it right all the time. We don't have all the information all the time, but keep that in mind, that to the extent that you can, gather as much information about the people who are attending that formal pitch and be ready to really connect with them and make sure what you're presenting is going to resonate with each one of them. And that gets more difficult, more challenging. It's going to require more time as you start to work with larger clients, and as you, maybe if your service is, as you have offer maybe more services or more elaborate services. Good question. All right. So moving on to the next practical tip is about, well, company size and the significance of your service. So if you sell something, a service, I'll give you an example. If it sort of home services. So if you want someone to maybe mow the lawn for you, so lawn mowing services, it's a pretty, it's what, a $200, $100, 200, depending on what you have. It's a pretty contained level of service, and we appreciate those who do that for us. But if you want to do a major landscaping project, let's say a $50,000 project in your backyard, it's a different level of pitching for the vendors, and it's a little bit different level of consideration for you, especially if you don't have background in home in gardening or in landscaping, right? As a client. So me, as someone who needed the service, when I speak with those vendors who offer the lawn mowing services, they don't have to do a whole lot of convincing. They just gotta come in and show me what they do. Maybe I can do like a 1-month trial with them, and that's going to be a quick sale. But if I'm the person who is pitching the landscaping services, me as a lead, me as a potential client, I'm going to ask a whole lot of questions before I pay $10,000, $20,000. So the point here is that the time period that is going to take you to pitch is going to depend on some factors. So I know we talked about the types and the anatomy of pitches, but keep in mind that if you sell more complex, maybe newer service, more elaborate service, more expensive service, that's going to take, the timeline is going to be longer. So that's one dimension. The other dimension is if you're selling to small businesses, you're going to go and meet the business owner, and they're going to make a decision right there, and you're done. But if you're selling to mid-sized companies, you're going to meet more people. There are more stakeholders, more decision makers. There's more red tape. You have to satisfy everyone and the lawyers, because they're going to review your contract, and the procurement people. And then if you go to like the Fortune 500, it's a different level of engagement. So keep in mind that those will impact the way you pitch. They will impact that continuum I talked about. It'll be much longer as the size of the service, as the complexity of the service, as the size of the company are involved. So that is another tip. Another one is, we talked about it already, about objections. So I think I have it here in my notes, but we covered it throughout already. But my point is, you're going to learn a lot. You're going to have a lot of objections that you haven't heard before. So make sure every time, after every networking event, after every sales encounter, make sure you go back to your office, your home office, wherever, or maybe in the car right after you leave, and write down all the questions, all the things that you did well, because you also want to feel good about it, and also the things that you could have done better. So in terms of objections, anticipate, prepare your list of FAQs, and get that list longer and longer and longer, and practice it and read it quickly before you go to any sales environment, sales encounter, so that you do better with handling these objections. So let's pause here and see if we have another question from our audience. Let's see. Any specific questions you'd like to ask prospects to get deeper, more detailed information about their situation and problem? Very good question as well. And thank you, Adam, for that question. I appreciate it. So the questions, so we learned a little bit about their business, right? So in my mind, I want to understand all the pain points. I want to understand, why is it, so I'm going to assume that, because you said deeper, right? You want to get deeper. So I'm assuming, you've inspired them, you've engaged them, you've educated them, so they're asking you more. So this is where, sales there's an emotional aspect to sales. As I said earlier, people buy from people. But at the end of the day, you have to be solving a problem. So if I don't have the problem well defined, well understood as a consultant, so whatever I propose is going to be off. So I think, getting to know more about the pain points, or you always talk about pain points, but also sometimes people are happy, they're no pain, but they want to do more. They want to celebrate, they want to grow, they want to just have fun. I don't know. But depending on the service that you have, if they want to if you have pick a service, maybe you want to start up a service of doing maybe a spa, and we don't talk a lot about retail, but it's not just pain points, but whatever is motivating them to talk to you, to learn from you. I would ask questions about, understand what is it that they're not happy with today. It could be that they have a vendor that's just not performing, right? We talked about that earlier. It could be that they have it as a policy, and this happens with maybe mid-sized companies, that it happens a lot with government clients, and selling to the government is a different beast altogether. We talk about it maybe later, but some companies have a requirement to change vendors or reevaluate vendors and get requests for proposals, RFPs and RFQs, every 12 months or every 24 months. So understanding why someone is talking to you, asking deeper questions about why are they still engaged, and knowing exactly what they're looking for and what they value in a vendor. I think those are the things you want to really focus on. And based on that, you come later in that formal setting, or maybe a follow-up email, or maybe have them talk to a customer of yours who has the same needs. I think those are all good ways to do that. Another thing would be, depending on the size of your business, if you're still you're the CEO, and I'm going to say that, and you're the janitor, and you're everything in between, because I was that for a couple of years when I started the first business. If you're just yourself, that's one thing. But let's say maybe you started a business already and you have some sales and you have a salesperson. So potentially, I don't want to say the word tactic in a bad way, but you can have multiple people from your organization get different types of information. So you're going to be perceived as a sales guy. So they're going to be guarded. They're not going to share a lot. Potentially, you can schedule a demo and have your technical person, maybe your business partner who's technical and you're on the sales side, they can come in a non-sales environment. Now it's a demo, it's a technical discussion, and they can ask a whole lot more questions and get really deep into why the customer is still talking to you, right? So those are some ideas. Hope those are helpful. And please do let me know, like this video, send us a comment. I'd love to know from you what you think of these tips and these ideas we're sharing. So we're getting close to the end of this live stream. So before I conclude, I want to double check that we've answered the question that came up today, as well as the questions that we have received prior to the live stream. So we have one more here. Should I pitch by myself or with someone else? I guess sort of answered this question already. So if you're a business owner, and let's say you're on the technical side of things, so you're not the salesperson, and let's say you have a business partner. So if you have someone who is, let me back up a little bit, because there are different scenarios. One is you're the only person. You're the business owner by yourself. You have to do everything. So I don't think you have a lot of options. You got to pitch. There's no ifs, ands, buts about it, right? Now, if you have a team, even a small team, 2-3 people, I would definitely include this, as I just said earlier, include the team in the pitch process. So you might have done the initial networking and brought in the lead, or you might be, like in terms of, I know we talked a lot about networking events because there's a lot of personal sort of one-on-one interactions, but your way to market could be through totally online, totally digital. Maybe you produce a lot of content. You're getting leads to the website, and that could be your way of getting leads. And then you're going to do a follow-up email and a follow-up call. So again, leads. I know I said a whole lot. I said numerous times in this live stream. I talked about networking events or conferences or meeting people sort of at the gym or in a casual setting. But in terms of getting leads, you can get leads in so many different ways. So in terms of the pitch, yes, you have to pitch. I say if you're a solo sort of, you're on your own. I don't want to say the word solopreneur because that has a different context. We're talking about an entrepreneur who he or she want to grow the business. They're thinking of scaling beyond just a solopreneur. But regardless, if it's only you, you have to pitch. If it's not just you, you can outsource cold calling. As I said, you can potentially hire a salesperson who would pitch for you, but that comes at a price. You have to pay someone, right? So a decision you have to make. Good. So I think we've answered all the questions. Again, thank you so much, Adam. Appreciate you as well. One more question here. Shall I discuss pricing during a pitch? And what if there are objections? I think we talked about objections, but pricing needs its own video. But I wouldn't bring, short answer, I wouldn't bring pricing right up. And again, with every best practice that I say and other folks say, there are always exceptions. At times, mentioning pricing right away is good because you can qualify. Let's say you sell a premium level service, whatever it is, right? You only want to work with people at a certain level of in terms of pricing. So mentioning the pricing earlier, let's say you want to do a financial, is really important because then you qualify, you vet those who are not in your target audience. So let's say you do financial services, you offer a financial services consulting, or you're a financial advisor, and say you want to work with those who have $10 million in, the high net worth individuals, then mentioning that early on, again, I would say do it humbly, don't brag. That's really important because you don't waste your cycles on people who are not in that bracket, right? But in general, I'm not of the school of thought of talking about pricing earlier, because, and they might be the lead might be interested because I want to learn more. I want to build rapport. I want to build that credibility, that trust. I want to build that, and I want them to lower their guards a little bit. People can always find budget. People can always find budgets. That's not a problem. So it's where we allocate the budget. Do I pay for this program or that program, right? So I'm of the opinion of not talking about pricing right away. Now clients might ask, and again, that's part of the objection handling. That's part of the FAQs. How do I address pricing? So in one of our businesses, when we were targeting the Fortune 500, an audit that we used to sell at $5,000 when we were smaller, we now start at $25,000. So again, we had a really strong content producing machine as a company. We had an industry leading blog. We were getting a lot of leads, and we get these small businesses who just can't afford our business. Our processes just did not support. We had a lot of free material, free webinars they can listen to, no problem. We'd love to support all businesses. But in terms of business, we were really focused on the Fortune 500. So mentioning that price early on helped us filter out leads. So those are some thoughts on pricing. Good stuff. So let's here wrap it up. So we talked about what a sales pitch is, that active communication to convey value and to convince the lead to move to the next step of the process. Do not give them a contract prematurely. They will not sign it, right? So a sales pitch is to get someone closer to signing a contract. We talked about the different types of pitches. We talked about the different dimensions. There's the formal setting, the informal setting, adding value, demonstrating, conveying your credibility, listening to the customer, that call to action to always, after every meeting, what is it next that I want to do with this lead? As you learn more about the leads, what is that problem that they have, identifying the problem, and then proposing the solution. So all of those are really relevant. You can apply them in different ways, different settings, but those things are really important. So I hope that you have found this material useful. Again, leave us a comment, ask us the questions, subscribe to the Daily Advisor on our website. And before I leave, I want to share this on the slide here, is that a lot of the content I produce is based on what I learned from founders. And again, people might say, like, what are you selling? At this level in the business, we're building a community. So go to startupwithfairuz.com. We have two forms. One is you can sign up with our newsletter. And again, this is my soft pitch. There's a lot of value in it to people who want to start a business and people who are starting and struggling across every aspect: sales, marketing, mindset, you name it. Working with accountants, working with lawyers, working with family members, partnering. These are things I see problems. I see businesses fail because they're not addressing these issues. So check out the videos we have on those topics. And if you have a question, we do offer this Ask Fairuz session where I put every week a couple of sessions, 2-3 sessions to help entrepreneurs, in their struggles. We don't charge. There's no hook. There's no. It's not some sort of thing to get you in so we can sell you something. But we offer those services, so you can submit the Ask Fairuz form, and we'll be more than happy to schedule a session with you and help you grow in your business. So you see this on the screen. I hope you found this material useful. Please share this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and see you next time.